As a commander, it was only natural for my father to often leave and lead his troops into battle. But one day, he never came back. He and 5,000 of his soldiers vanished mysteriously in northern Britain. Some said he was defeated, others claimed he was dead, or even that he ran away. I never knew which was true, but whatever it was, his disappearance turned his name into a disgrace for the Roman Empire. Years later, I, Marcus Flavius Aquila, was assigned to serve as a centurion, leading a small unit stationed in Britain. I didn't want to end up like my father, but I was determined to restore his honor in the eyes of Rome. And in this small outpost, my story begins. When I arrived at the camp, I was introduced to the soldiers as their new commander. Some of the veterans weren't pleased with my presence, simply because I was the son of a failed commander. I didn't care what they thought. I entered my quarters, arranged my belongings, and prayed for strength.
His honor.
On my first day of duty, I began observing the discipline of my men and ordered them to dig trenches around the fort. For me, the safety of everyone was the top priority. By late afternoon, I noticed that our food supplies were running low, so I instructed several soldiers to fetch provisions along the road. One of the senior officers objected, saying it was too dangerous to cross enemy territory, but I firmly insisted.
The men, they need to eat too.
That night, I woke abruptly from my sleep, feeling an odd sense pulling me to check the perimeter. I've never been one to ignore small details. I was trained to stay alert, no matter the circumstances. Outside the fort, the darkness was thick. I could barely see anything, but there was something I could sense that others couldn't. Without any visible sign of danger, I decided to wake all the men and ordered them to arm themselves and prepare for battle. They were clearly irritated by my sudden command, but I'd rather have them angry than dead. For a while, everything seemed calm. Perhaps it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But suddenly, our camp was attacked by a barbarian tribe. They swarmed out of the darkness in groups. In that moment, I ordered a man to fetch a torch, but as he tried to bring it, an enemy stabbed him and the torch fell. Without hesitation, I rushed for the torch with some effort, because with that torch I could drive the attackers back. The brief fight was over. By dawn, I checked on the men. Most of them were alive, and I prayed for those who had fallen. Shortly after, the camp was thrown into alarm. Some soldiers returned, but they didn't bring food. They came back as prisoners of the barbarians. I felt guilty about the order I had given. I should have listened to my senior officer. From a distance, I saw the barbarian leader begin to taunt us, insulting and cursing in his own language. I knew they hated Rome for taking their land, and today they had formed an alliance to rebel. I could not stand still. After all, I had put some of my men in danger. I had to take responsibility and bring them back to camp, even if it seemed impossible. With only 50 soldiers, I forced myself to attempt this dangerous mission. I prayed silently first, asking a little strength from my father, who had won many battles.
Open the gate!
The gate opened, and perhaps my story as a centurion would end in death. As the enemy closed in, I decided to form a testudo, even though I knew this formation was meant mainly to defend against ranged attacks. With the testudo, we stayed protected and made it hard for the enemy to break us.
Move forward!
Slowly, I pushed the line forward toward the captured men, then changed formation into a defensive circle of shields. This defense would not hold forever. I had to free my soldiers quickly. Now I only had to think of a way to get everyone back to camp safely. Then, suddenly, the sound of trumpets made the enemy pull back. I hesitated. Had they surrendered? The trumpet was actually a warning from the barbarian leader. They were about to pursue us with horse-drawn chariots. I decided to retreat because those chariot wheels had sharp blades. While running, one of my men fell behind after being cut by a wheel. I could not leave him. I turned back and threw a spear at the enemy. When I woke up, I was no longer on the battlefield. I was at my uncle's house. He said I had managed to strike down an enemy with a spear, but was knocked unconscious by a chariot. From that reckless action, I also suffered a knee injury, which meant I would have to be absent for a while. That didn't matter. The important thing was that the barbarians had been defeated, and my men were safe.
My men.
Your men were saved.
The next day, a senior officer came to see me. He spoke on behalf of everyone in the camp to thank me for my courage and leadership, but he also brought other news. I was relieved of duty by the government because of my injury, so now I was no longer a centurion. My hope to surpass my father and restore his honor was gone. Maybe my uncle sensed how I felt. He tried to cheer me up by taking me to a small gladiator show. Honestly, it was my first time in a place like that. I didn't even know that a slave could be forced to fight. But when the match began, the slave offered no resistance. He stood still while his opponent beat him. I really disliked such entertainment. How could this even be considered entertainment? The rules were odd. The crowd decided the fighter's fate. If one combatant was helpless, the spectators raised their thumbs. A thumbs down meant kill, while a thumbs up meant spare. At first, everyone simultaneously raised their thumbs up as if they wanted the weak slave to die that day. I was different. I alone raised my thumb up and shouted for the slave to be spared. My call was soon followed by everyone else. I didn't want to be a hero. To me, only an enemy deserved to be killed.
Now that I was not expecting.
As the afternoon approached, my uncle came to me, bringing along a personal servant.
Slave?
To my surprise, it was the same slave who had nearly died in the gladiator arena. His name was Esca, a young man of Brigantes descent who had been enslaved since childhood. He despised Rome for slaughtering his people, yet he vowed to serve me as a token of gratitude. From that day on, he was always by my side. The next morning, my uncle called for a doctor to help heal my wound. However, the injury on my leg was caused by a shard of metal lodged deep inside, so the doctor needed to perform surgery to remove it. The operation would be extremely painful, so the doctor asked Esca to hold me down tightly to keep me from moving. Long story short, I eventually made a full recovery. I could walk normally again, even ride a horse while hunting in the forest. When I returned home, I was greeted by two guests of my uncle. They were officials from the Roman government. At first, everything seemed fine, but during dinner, their conversation began to strike a nerve. They mentioned the golden eagle, the standard that my father once carried into northern Britain, saying that it was still a topic among the empire's officials.
Eagle lost, honor lost, all lost.
The golden eagle was a symbol of Rome's honor, and if a commander lost it, he was deemed to have brought shame upon the empire. I was furious. I refused to let them speak of my father that way. I knew he never returned from his campaign in the north, but that didn't mean he was a failure. He had led countless victories before. He was a great leader. Yet, everyone remembered him only for one uncertain defeat. From that day forward, I swore to travel to the north and uncover the truth. Perhaps it was impossible to find my father alive, but at the very least I could bring the eagle back to Rome. My uncle tried to stop me, warning that no Roman had ever returned alive from the northern lands, but I refused to listen. I would go, and Esca would come with me, since he was born there and could speak the native tongue. Perhaps my uncle was right. I could die out there, or Esca could betray and kill me. No one knew what awaited us, but my resolve was unshaken. After a day's journey, we finally reached Hadrian's Wall, the long stone barrier separating Rome from the wild lands of the north. Some called it the end of the world, for no man who crossed it ever returned. I had never seen land like this before, cold, silent, full of signs warning people not to enter. Our journey had only just begun. The terrain was vast, with many valleys and hills to cross. I had one goal: to find the place where my father had fought and locate whoever was keeping the Golden Eagle. Here, only Esca could speak to the locals if we needed to ask questions, because if they found out I was Roman, it would be like handing them my life. After long stretches of travel, we always stopped to rest and eat, but that didn't mean we were safe. This was part of the risk I'd accepted. We had to stay alert at all times. Suddenly, a group of bandits attacked. We fought them off together. At one point, Esca caught a bandit who came at him unarmed, and to our surprise, the bandit turned out to be a child. Esca couldn't bring himself to kill him and let him go. I was different. Any potential threat, I dealt with immediately. We continued on our journey, wandering for days without finding anything. No one seemed to know or even hear about the battle that had taken place so many years ago. Frustration began to build within me. I began to think these men were lying. Angrily, I forced one of them to tell me the truth. The man claimed to know nothing about the battle, but he told us to head for the snowy mountains. I wasn't sure what he meant, but it sounded like a lead worth following. As we entered the dense forest, a man suddenly lunged from the shadows and attacked Esca, knocking him to the ground. I managed to subdue him, and that's when Esca noticed something: a scar under the man's chin. It was a distinctive scar from a Roman helmet strap. Only Roman soldiers had scars like that. And sure enough, the man confessed that he had once been a soldier of the 9th Legion, named Lucius.
First cohort of the 9th Legion.
I truly never expected to meet someone who had once fought alongside my father. Lucius was one of the few soldiers who survived the battle 20 years ago. At first, I saw him as a coward, a man who had fled from the fight, but I still needed him. He was the only one who could reveal the truth about my father and the fate of the Golden Eagle. Lucius led us to the haunting land where the battle once took place. As we walked through the desolate field, he began to tell the whole story. It was here, he said, that my father faced the ruthless tribe known as the Seal People, and it was they who now possessed the Golden Eagle. I asked Lucius where their tribe could be found, but his answer froze me in place. "You should ask your slave, he's one of their descendants." I couldn't believe it. Esca, the man who swore loyalty to me, had been hiding this truth all along. He knew about the battle, about the tribe, perhaps even about my father's death. Though his ancestors belonged to a different branch of the tribe, the blood connection was undeniable. The argument that followed was fierce. We shouted, accused each other, and in the heat of it all, fell off our horses. But before we could recover, something unexpected happened. We found ourselves surrounded by a group of hunters. Not just any hunters. They were the Seal People. I was doomed from the start. Unlike me, Esca was welcomed among them. They recognized his lineage and name. And just like that, my world turned upside down. My companion, my servant, my only ally, betrayed me. Now I was the slave and the prisoner of the Seal People. I don't know what day it is now or how long I've been here. What's clear is that I'm in the land of the tribe that once fought against my father. I can't just escape. I can't fight. I'm completely alone. But at one moment I saw the Seal People start gathering in one place for some kind of event that I didn't even know the name of. They surrounded the fire, drinking and shouting. At that time I watched from a distance until, finally, what I was looking for appeared: the Golden Eagle. It turned out the tribal chief was the one keeping it. Without thinking twice, I immediately ran toward them, but I was struck until I lost consciousness. A few moments later, Esca woke me up. He hadn't betrayed me. He was only using the Seal People and waiting for the right moment to act. Now, we just needed to enter a cave and retrieve the Golden Eagle before escaping. However, the plan didn't go smoothly. We were discovered by the tribal chief and his 2 guards. I faced the chief directly, the very man who had killed my father in battle. It didn't take long before I managed to finish him off and leave the place as quickly as possible. But just before we mounted our horses, a little boy called out to Esca, During our time here, Esca had grown close to him, and now the boy wanted to come with us. With a heavy heart, Esca handed him a small wooden toy and said goodbye to the child. During our escape, we had to move as fast as possible. Even though we had gained some distance, the seal people knew this land better than anyone. They were skilled hunters and expert trackers. My movement was slightly hindered because of the wound I got while fighting the tribal chief, but Esca kept trying to calm me down. He was confident that we would make it back to Rome. When night came, we decided to rest for a while to regain our strength. The problem was, we couldn't light a fire. It would be too risky and might give away our position. We had completely run out of supplies, and to fill our stomachs, we were forced to eat raw rat meat. The next morning, we continued our journey, but the distance had become far too much for our horses. They could barely take another step. We had no choice but to continue on foot. Then Esca made a bold decision. He led me to hide in the river so the dogs couldn't track our scent. The seal people were right above us, still searching, unwilling to let us escape. Once they left, we continued our journey by following the river's current. I was already on the brink of death. My vision blurred and my steps faltered, but Esca stayed by my side the entire time. At that moment, Esca took me to the riverbank and told me to rest for a moment, but himself looked like thinking of something. Esca was physically strong, unlike me who could barely stand. I told him to take the golden eagle and leave as quickly as possible, but he refused. I ordered him again with the same words, and this time he agreed, but on one condition. I must free him as a slave. But after that, Esca refused to take the golden eagle and told me to stay where I was. Without a word, he simply left, disappearing from my sight. Maybe I was destined to end up like my father, dead at the hands of the seal tribe of North Britain. I don't know. This time I was alone, and there was nothing I could do but tie a golden eagle to the end of a wooden stick. Yeah, I suppose I would end up like my father. The sound of barking dogs grew closer. I knew the seal tribe would find me soon, but then something caught my eye in the thick fog. Was I hallucinating? It looked like a formation. Esca, he was back to me with Lucius and some old men.
Halt!
I couldn't believe it. They were my father's soldiers. They were back, asking for one last command, to atone for their departure from the battlefield all those years ago.
Prepare to defend the eagle!
A short while later, the seal people began to come one by one, and their numbers outnumbered us. Worse, the chieftain's son also brought a little boy, who was accused of betraying the tribe for letting me and Esca escape. Even more cruelly, the child was executed right in front of us.
Outside!
In the middle of the river, we fought using a simple formation of old shields. Esca, Lucius, the other former soldiers, and I fought with whatever strength we had left. After some time in the fight, I finally faced the chieftain's son. I didn't only use my sword, I used another method to finish him quickly. I threw his body into the water and held his head under until he stopped moving. The battle is over. We won, leaving no seal people alive. Some of us fell in combat, including Lucius. As our final tribute, we prayed for everyone and for our ancestors who had found peace in the afterlife. Esca and I then returned to Rome, bringing the golden eagle to the high officials of the empire. No one could believe we were still alive after venturing into the northern lands of Britain. With the return of the golden eagle, my father's honor would finally be restored. All the false accusations and disgrace would be erased forever. The eagle itself stood as proof that my father was no coward. He fought to protect it until his very last breath.
With only a slave to help you.
He's not a slave.
Our journey had been exhausting, just like the owner of this channel who probably spent days editing this video and forgot to wash his fucking ass. So, let's show him some support by giving this video a like and subscribe. Leave some encouraging words in the comments too. Thank you, soldier.